going to start off today with Jonathan Meystrik. He's a senior computer science and mathematics major, so one of the busiest people you'll find on campus for sure. He's from Knoxville, Tennessee. He also is a part of the soccer team, and this summer he did his internship at Jewelry Television, also known as JTV, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about that. And when he leaves Maryville College, he's actually looking forward to pursuing 2 master's degrees, both in computer science and engineering. All right, Jonathan, take it away.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm Jonathan Meystrik. So yeah, this summer I did my internship at Jewelry Television, which is just here in Knoxville, Tennessee, kind of West Knoxville. There were actually 4 Meystriks working there at the time. I just happened to be the one interning, and that's why labeled Best Meystrik. This is the presentation I gave in front of the whole company at the end of the summer, and so I'm giving it again now for you all here. I was a part of the software engineering team called Transformers, and they deal with all the product, warehouse, in and out, all that stuff. It was a really, really fun experience. That was the profile picture I picked on my first day. That's why it's up there as well. So let's get into it. First, I'm going to kind of talk about why I really liked my internship and why I think. Let's go. Okay, I'm back. Like I said, I'm going to talk about why I think internships are great and then a little about the details of mine. So starting off just with what I did there, I spent a lot of time on this transition. So I wrote a lot of code. I actually only had 1 project this summer. However, it was a really massive project, completely redoing their whole product warehouse management system, which was really old before I got here. However, not just my project, but internships in general, it was a really, really awesome experience. The campus was awesome. Anyone who's interested in computer science or business analytics, I would really recommend checking JTV out, not just for their campus, but for the people there, as I'll get into. There is TSA level security, given that there's millions of dollars of product stored within. So it was a fun experience getting to go through security every single day and feeling like you're going through the airport. They have ping pong, and it gets really competitive, as well as soccer field, volleyball courts, all sorts of things when you're not just on the job. They have their own gym that you have 24-hour access to just because you're there and working. There's just great teams all around that, it's not always be productive, be productive, be productive. They just want, fun people to work with as well. Their CEO, Tim Matthews, who's this guy right here, he is really involved in everyone there at the campus. He's actually, every department, he's the HR, one of the HR reps for them, and so he just really cares about, all the employees there, as well as personally sitting down with all the interns and having lunch with us, which is a really great experience. I was also part of this challenge called 75 Hard, where you had to drink a gallon of water a day. And I had a lot of really great coding ideas come to me in the bathroom. If anybody codes a lot, you know that the second you stand up from your program, all the ideas flood back to you. Lots of snacks. It's great. So the Scrum Agile process, I don't know how many are familiar with how that works. Basically, it's a methodology that a lot of companies use as far as a cycle of 2-week sprints where you get your work done, you have a planning session at the beginning, you do your work in the sprint, and then you have a review afterwards kind of showing what you accomplished throughout the sprint. And that process just repeats over and over again, and I got to really know this process well as documenting my work and showing my code and communicating with really awesome developers who were helping me along the way. I also got to work with a really awesome UI UX team. They were a part of redesigning the front end and kind of giving me an outline to follow as I was building it. And they were just a joy to work with as I got to kind of see what a UI UX team looks like and how they communicate with developers on the back end. And this was my team, the Transformers. They kind of had their own projects, but they were always available for me whenever I did have any questions. 3 of them are senior developers, and they're just the smartest people ever, and really, really awesome to work with. So now, Hoku, which is the product management system that I rebuilt, if you look at those shelves behind me, that's their static product shelving, and they have over 200,000 different bins on 3 different floors, and those little guns you see there are in charge of picking product out of those, putting product back away, or counting inventory, and that system is very, very old. The old Hoku system was written in C# way long ago, using Visual Basic and Windows CE, which is like back in 2007 when that was made. And you'll see in a minute some examples of the old UI versus the new UI. Just real quick, I'm going to get into kind of the architecture that I built for the new system. So the new Hoku, this is what the new guns look like, a lot better and a lot faster, and using Android operating system, which compared to Windows, you kind of have to build all your forms and do everything manually. There's a lot of room for error. Moving to something that supports Android, a lot of that error is taken care of by just the operating system alone. So how it works, this is probably the meat of my project, was coming up with an architecture that supported this pre-existing system and their code base that was already written in C#, and I'm going to turn it into Java to match their new code base, fit it into Android's operating system, which was just a really fun problem to solve, which takes a while, but it was really, really good experience. So basically there's this app called Data Wedge on the right, and it sends out a broadcast when it receives a scan on the barcode of any of the product. And so you scan that, and a broadcast goes out to the entire app. So I had to find a way to capture that in the app that I wrote, which is Hoku Mobile. And so I'm listening for these broadcasts, registering for them. And then the architecture I went with is the presenter first architecture, which says basically you have a UI view, and if somebody touches your UI or if a broadcast comes in, well then that goes to a view model, which kind of holds all your data and safe from the life cycle of your app. For example, if someone's on the UI and they accidentally close the app in the middle of a task or in the middle of a process, your view model is kept safe because it's holding all your data instead of your UI pages or anything like that. That is then going on different threads to keep the speed and performance up to a task processor, which is cloud-based, and then that goes into the rest of the presenter first system, which is controller, service, processor, and then that goes to a socket, which then goes to our secure servers, gets all the information that is needed, and then that sends it back down through the pyramid and then out to the view model. And when the view model is adjusted, the UI is then observing the view model and then making changes so that the data that you're interacting with the 200,000 different products is immediately up to date and always accurate on the screen. So that's a little bit about kind of the back-end system, and then also had to implement the design that the UI team made. And here's some befores and afters of the old Hoku system, which is here on the right, and the new designs on the left. You're going to notice very drastic changes. For example, why does it look like that? I don't know. But the new one is a lot better. And it was my first time kind of taking a big application like this and redesigning a UI, which is one of my favorite things ever, is dealing with UIs and user interactions and stuff. So this was a joy, just getting to see such drastic differences between the UI especially, and just having a UI team in general, so I didn't have to be the artist and come up with all these. I just got to make it look the way they wanted. Oh wait, and so there's different modules, as you can see, and it's like tote lookup, put away, building carts, counting inventory. Stuff wasn't available, and we made all that go away, and everything on the UI is now useful. For example, putting away, you kind of got this tote in front of you with product, and you're putting it into bins and several scan interactions. And so having that information organized when you're dealing with a product that's valuable is very helpful, so that you're not messing up or losing product, or when you have such a large storage space, it's really useful to make sure you know exactly where all your product is. Some more examples of the old and the new UI. And then just overall, I wrote a lot of lines of code, over 13,000 lines of code back before I did this presentation. And the blogs, I got to, like I said, be a part of the agile process. And so I got to document my work and write blogs every day about what I did that day, what my goals were, and what I accomplished, and what I'm going to do the next day. Just really awesome because I've never really kept track of my work because I didn't need to. And yeah, really, really, really fun time at JewelryTV working, and a lot of valuable experience in new code bases and working with really talented developers. If you have any questions, let me know. This was me in the auditorium. So, any questions?
Actually, I do have one. Are there openings next summer? Would students be able to apply? What's that process like?
Yes, there are openings every summer, except for COVID year. That was the only year they weren't able to do an intern program. And there are openings in the technology department in pretty much any field. Technology, or JTV is really special in Knoxville because they do all of their technology in-house. They do not hire any third parties to build their technology systems for them. So any area of computer science or business analytics that you can think of or be interested in, they have teams for in-house that are very top-notch.
And so where do they look to apply?
If you want to apply, if you go to JTV's website and just go to careers, or just reach out to anyone in the technology department, such as Todd Trevette or any of the management, their names are listed like immediately. Once you go to Jewelry Technology, you'll see the people that you need to contact kind of immediately. Or ask me and I can get you connected. That works as well.
Next two that we have talking, and we'll get back to Jonathan hopefully, we have Alex Sonner on your right and Colton Gentry on your left. Colton is a business analytics major and a mathematics major here at Maryville College. So again, another very busy person, also part of the cross country team, and from Loudon, Tennessee. He did his internship along with Alex at Dollywood this summer, and when Colton finishes up, he's planning to find a job in industry. Alex is a junior as well, a business analytics major, and he is from Maryville, Tennessee. Like I said, also involved with the internship at Dollywood, and when he finishes up, he is looking to move, or he's looking to go to grad school, possibly at UTK for logistics.
You know, in an effort to predict future scenarios. So, you know, if the weather was looking bad, we would know to expect so and so many people, and we would expect to budget the park for that much money. And that was one of my favorite things about interning with Dollywood, was they allowed us to experiment with our data. They were more so a resource for us than bosses, if you would agree. They essentially gave us a scenario and then allowed us the freedom in order to explore that scenario and find a scenario in which we were best able to model and turn that into worthwhile data. But, you know, in addition to our larger projects, like Alex was saying, we were doing a bunch of different, like, littler things in between. So we weren't from project to project. There was a bunch of smaller, busy work to keep us engaged. So, like he was saying earlier, we were updating weather and attendance forecasts. We were uploading and balancing financial reports, and we were also balancing both on the property and the divisional level. So, you know, any accountant people, that's where you are.
So I guess our first project that we kind of did on our own was the merchandise project. So this consists of us going on our own and finding out something that Dollywood was quote unquote lacking in. So we kind of explored not really just at Dollywood, but other locations of parks. So a prime example of that would be Disney. So we looked at what they had and we didn't. So specifically in the merchandise section, we found something like t-shirts and posters. So we realized that Dollywood didn't have a lot of posters for sale, nothing in that category, so we kind of presented to that. And also with the t-shirts, obviously since it's called Dollywood, it's one of the main reasons people go to get Dollywood merchandise. Now, we realized that Dollywood didn't sell enough Dolly product and there was a need for it. So we were looking online and we would find shirts of Dolly that would be selling for $600, $700, and just a simple 90s vintage idea. So acting upon that, we realized that obviously in this time, vintage is kind of the new style. So we looked at roller coaster themed shirts, park themed shirts, and that was one of our other ideas. Each theme, each park location would have its own theme in a t-shirt. So you could put in a t-shirt or you could put it on a poster, which made it very versatile.
And it would also give identity to different sections of the park, because I'm not even sure that you guys are aware that Dollywood has different sections of the park. There's Wildwood Grove, Wilderness Pass, Timber Canyon, so on and so forth. But this was another one of our biggest projects, and this was one that Alex was largely responsible for, so I'll pass it off to him.
So this was the maintenance dashboard, and this dealt with the ride downtime. So obviously there's a lot of variables that go into the downtime. So one of them is weather. Now you can't control weather, but you have to take into account what it does to the park. So if it rains, there's a thunder, lightning storm, you have to be delayed for X amount of hours or minutes. So what I would get every week of the month was an updated spreadsheet of what rides were down and for how long. So every week I would update this dashboard and say, you know, this was the reason why it was down. And they really wanted to see how much of the maintenance was the reason for the ride being down. So what I did was categorize the whole downtime into 3 variables. So weather, maintenance downtime, and other. And other is things you wouldn't expect. So maybe people getting in an argument with the workers or kids throwing up on the rides. So you'd have to take into account for that. The next part was finding patterns within it. Obviously wanted a maintenance pattern, and most of the time the main ride that was down was Thunderhead. So, you know, it's an older ride, which you have to take into account for, and you know, you just can't fix it like that. It takes a second since it's a huge roller coaster. And the final thing is what to show on this dashboard. You know, you have all kinds of information to project, but it's important to show the main details we're wanting. So the first part of it, I would put down the amount of hours times down each week, and it would either go up or down. And there's obviously variables you can't control, like I said, the weather. So there was one point in the week where it was a huge thunderstorm for 2 days. So the downtime was incredibly higher than it was supposed to be. So you have to count for variables like that. And then another part was actually showing the information. So a lot of line graphs and bar charts was to show the difference in everything for it.
And this was one of the projects I was given. I was given a bunch of the data for a recent addition to the company. We had recently paid a third-party source to automate phone calls. So if it was after hours and they sent the call center people home, we would have a service that would allow you to answer the phone and get a response. And basically I was looking to see whether or not revenue increased as a result of that, because it was implemented shortly after COVID. So of course there was a huge revenue spike because, you know, we just got back from COVID. So I was looking at data from 2016 to currently to see if the spike was truly caused by the addition or if it was just the continuing trend. And my second and probably biggest project, and Alex helped a bit with this, was the merchandise model. Merchandise had one big goal for us, and it was whether or not we should up the amount of Dolly branded things in the stores. And so I took a couple of simplifications with this model. First off, I only looked at 2 stores, Dolly's Closet and the Emporium. So the huge store that you have to leave the park through, and then Dolly's Closet, which, you know, you would expect has Dolly branded items, although right now it's only a quarter of the store. So I was looking at that, and another simplification I took was, you know, in order to account for quantity and, our ability to sell things on a limited square footage, I had to substitute dolly items for non-dolly items. So every time you added a dolly item, you subtracted a non-dolly item. And that was done by percentages, and then we saw how much that affected revenue. And that was the big model that I made. But we wanted to sum it up pretty efficiently here at the end. So I think the number one thing that we learned was that in corporate America, you live in Excel. Pretty much everything that we did was an extension of Excel.
Second would be working off each other. Now it seems pretty self-explanatory, but Dollywood opened us with, they're excited to have us, and really everything we did, there's parts we were confused on, they were happy to explain it to us. And when we would present our information or we would sit on meetings with them, they were super happy to tell us, if we were confused what some vocabulary meant, to explain it to us. So overall, they're really here to help us.
Finally is experimentation, because they're going to tell you things that you simply will not understand, no matter how many times they explain it to you. And the only real way to figure some things out is just to, brace through it until you have something that's workable and something that is useful. So thank you for sitting through our presentation. Do you guys have any questions for me or Alex? If it was closer, yes.
I would say the same thing. It was a little bit of a drive for us since we're kind of further away from Pigeon Forge, but the opportunity is amazing. I know they're always taking internships in the summer, and I think they're thinking about doing it this fall, if I remember correctly. So it's definitely a great opportunity to try it out.
Awesome. Do you have any, go ahead. When you were creating your models, did you use anything besides Excel, such as like R or anything written?
The only thing that they offered was Excel, and that was the only thing that the company used company-wide. So it was exclusively Excel. Anything else?
All right, if you do have any further questions, there might be some time at the end, being that we lost a little bit there with the delay. Thank you so much, everybody. Give them a big round of applause. So I'm really glad I get to introduce our next speaker. This is Jace Brittain. He is a senior business analytics major. More personally to me, he's been a part of the STEM Success Center since I've been here. He's one of our tutors. A lot of you have probably seen him there on Wednesday night. He's a very, very busy man on campus. He is also a captain of the football team this year, and he is the starting center as well. And the other thing I want to point out is he did his internship at SmartBank, and from what he's talked to me about it so far, it sounds like it was a really cool opportunity for much in the way Jonathan kind of just got to do his kind of own thing with maybe a little bit less guidance, kind of let's see their ideas, similar to Alex and Colton as well. Jace did a similar thing, just in a different industry. So I will turn it over to him.
Yeah, so like Brett said, my name is Jace Brittain. I'm majoring in business analytics with a minor in data analysis. And this summer I worked at SmartBank here in Maryville, Tennessee. So SmartBank is a mid-sized bank that was founded in Pigeon Forge in 2007 by a father and son duo. They're trying to work to achieve a $5 billion market cap right now. They have really kind of their core values kind of stood out to me. So they are act with integrity, be enthusiastic, create positivity.
You didn't turn it on.
Demonstrate accountability and embrace change. And so I thought those were really neat core values for a company. So at SmartBank, I had the opportunity to work closely with many IT professionals and kind of see their day-to-day operations. My main role was to create a strategic plan to develop the implementation of a data analytics department at SmartBank. So it's kind of like the ground floor for what they're really trying to do. So I was really excited to be a part of that. So kind of this process began with a month's worth of research, and I got to comb through many articles and blogs and research people have done before about like really what it takes to create a successful department for data analytics inside of a financial company. Also had the opportunity to set up meetings with many data analytics professionals outside of SmartBank. So that was really neat. I got to talk to people from Regions Bank, Wells Fargo, Northwestern Mutual, and Google. So that was really neat. So I did this by spamming a bunch of people through LinkedIn and got a bunch of responses, so that was kind of cool. So this is actually a link to the strategic plan I created, and so I was kind of get through that a little bit. And so first kind of define what a data-driven organization is, so that the stakeholders know what we're trying to accomplish. And then you have the development of the data-driven culture, so people will buy in to what you're trying to do. And then we address data governance and how that will be handled throughout the company. The technology infrastructure and like where our data is now. So like a SmartBank, their data is kind of spread out. And one of the goals of this plan would be to create a central location like a data lake for them to bring all that data in so that they can easily access it. This is kind of where the bank is now with what they're doing with data analysis. So they really only have one true data analyst right now, and they're working on developing out that department. And so this is what this plan will help to do. And then a section called Put the Data to Work, and it's kind of the different sections of analytics. So descriptive kind of tells what happens in the past, diagnostic kind of goes off descriptive, and each of the predictive tells us what happen in the future, and then prescriptive analysis will tell how we can make that happen. And this was a roadmap with the different projects that I actually got to interview all the stakeholders of the company, so like the different executives. And so I talked to each of them. This is a compiled list of really what they wanted to do in like different phases of a process that could be possible. And then here's the out of future state, like where we want to be with that plan. And then I created a bunch of word clouds that compile everything that stakeholders mentioned in these interviews. So back to presentation. So some challenges I faced through this internship is really, so another responsibility I had was annotating meetings. So this kind of sounds boring, but it wasn't really. So I got to sit in on meetings with our data analyst at SmartBank and just take notes. She was developing a product package called Encino, which helps with mortgage and all that. And that kind of leads into the challenges because I have no idea what any of that stuff means. And that was hard to kind of overcome with taking these notes and actually like understanding what banks need. Like I said, the lingo and slang is really kind of difficult to understand in a bank. Becoming familiar with the culture, this is really like my first office job. So really just having that culture and being in a professional setting was really interesting and cool to experience. Understanding how to develop a strategic plan. So I had never had any experience with anything like this before. This was my first opportunity to take something like this and run with it. So kind of like Jonathan had and Colton and Alex had freedom to kind of go at my own pace. So this was my big project. So it took me all summer to do. And so yeah, I had kind of autonomy over that. And so that was a challenge in itself of really not knowing what to do and just figuring it out as I went. Unexpected benefits. Having the opportunity to truly help the organization. I feel like sometimes when we go into internships, we're just going to think of busy work or kind of just doing whatever around the office to help out any way we can. But like this, I felt was truly beneficial to the organization, and I'm really thankful to be able to have that opportunity to do that. And I was also offered a chance to work part-time semester. So that was really exciting for me that I made an impact on the people around me. So kind of like through our internship thing through Handshake, I created these learning objectives, and so be able to apply what I learned in the classroom in a real situation, and this worked out perfectly here. Like analytic skills, watching the data analysts do things through SQL and other programs like Power BI, and become more fluent with appropriate coding languages. I feel like I did that as well, and gain a more in-depth understanding of Power BI and other analysis software. And that's really where shadowing came in with the data analyst. I got to watch her go through the day-to-day processes and how this really works in a real setting. And so, yeah, I'm really thankful for the opportunity, and glad I got to share about my experience with them. Any questions?
Power BI, is that a system that they use? Like, is it an interface that then they run software through the data analysis?
Correct.
What is that?
So Power BI is like a dashboard system from Microsoft, and so yeah, you can take like an SQL server and implement that in there. It'll automate processes and stuff. You can like create dashboards so like different people can see. That's pretty neat.
Any other questions for Jace? If our other presenters want to step up through real quick, I kind of have a general question for possibly all of you. Since this is kind of math and computer science focused, what was it like? I know you guys moved away from using maybe languages that you're more familiar with and going towards Excel, but what were the expectations like with learning a new language on the job?
Well, for me and Alex, we were given, in our first couple of weeks, we were given a huge packet. What was it, like 500 something pages?
It was close to 500-700 pages.
Yeah, 500-700 pages of just Excel exercises after Excel exercises after Excel exercises to make sure that we were proficient before we started. So that was the expectations with us.
Let's see, for me, most of their code bases were in Java, and luckily I was already pretty familiar with that. However, the Android APIs and the Android systems that I was building, they don't have any Android systems, and so I was actually the only one at the company that knew like the Android libraries. And basically that just took a few weeks of watching hours and hours of like the Android dev videos that they had online, reading through their dev docs, and then kind of learning it more by explaining what I learned to my team so that they could understand the Android libraries as well.
So I really didn't have to deal with any coding language as much. I was running 19-page document with them. When I after SQL and stuff like that, I just got to watch and see and help her.
So all four of you were, it seemed like you were given a lot of responsibility. So I'm curious what your thoughts were when you were told that you had this project and could have a real impact on the company you were interning with. Like, what was your reaction to that? Like, well, I'll just let you talk.
I thought it was pretty amazing for us. So like the merchandise project, one of the CEOs, her name is Janet, she was really impressed with what we brought to them. So like I said, the posters, kind of like the shirt ideas. It was really cool to see her add that to her notes, and like, because she has a whole project on just things to add to Dollywood, and it's really interesting to see her add what we did to her project to present to people in the higher class of Dollywood, and also just the information and projects that we created, because like Colton's project and ours, they definitely are now going to use it until further notice. So it's really cool to see how much of an impact we have.
Yeah, it really doesn't sink in until the team comes back to you and says, you two just did a successful presentation for 2 vice presidents of a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah, similar to them, it was really awesome to be told that like the project I'm working on will be used every day by agents in the warehouse. And moreover than that, going down to the warehouse and asking the people using these devices, what do you want changed? What do you want improved? What do you not like about the current system? And then getting to see them excited that their input was heard and that something new was coming that they get to use, and then being the one that gets to implement those changes and make those changes that, you know, they're specifically giving to me. It was a really, really neat experience of the work I'm doing for, you know, a large system directly impacting and benefiting actual people working in the warehouse.
Yeah, kind of the same as these guys. When I was first told about the project, I was like, wow, it's kind of a huge responsibility to be kind of laying the groundwork for a huge project for a multi-million-dollar company. So it's really amazing.
Any other questions? All right, well, let's give this group one more round. And thank all of you for coming. Really appreciate you being here. We're going to have another event on the 22nd. Dr. Wanda Strepo will be returning from last year, talking about how to get internships at ORNL. Look for emails about that soon.